Hey, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing God of War, the HD remake on the PlayStation 3. This actually came in the God of War collection. I'm pretty sure you can buy these games separately on the PlayStation Network. I actually got mine out of the God of War saga. The God of War collection contains remastered versions of the first and second game on the PlayStation 2. There's a slight raise in resolution. I think it goes to 720p and it runs at 60 frames per second. Unfortunately, due to what I have to record with, you won't see the 60 frames per second, but if you stay with my channel, if you watched YouTube for a while, I'm sure you're used to not seeing every video run at 60 frames per second. It's just one of those things that with the stuff I have, I can't do right now. Sorry. Hope you're not disappointed. But I got this in the God of War saga collection, which was God of War, God of War 2, God of War 3, God of War Ghost of Sparta, and I can't remember what the other one was called. It was both games on PSP. Now there's another game, and I can't remember what this one was called. Sorry. Probably should have did research before I did this video, but I can at least describe it to you. There was a physical copy of the collection of the two PSP games. Unfortunately, God of War Saga comes with online vouchers, which I didn't know at the time, but I'll get into that later. And yeah, so if you can, it might be a little bit more expensive, but I definitely would go with getting the two collections separately. Actually, it wouldn't come with God of War 3, so you'd have to get, but you can get God of War 3 now probably pretty cheap for the PlayStation 4 if you have a PlayStation 4, FYI. I don't think the game's that much better looking, honestly, from what I've seen. It just runs a little bit smoother, runs at 1080p, but whatever, it runs at 60 frames per second, but in my honest opinion, I don't think it makes a huge difference. I think with games like this, like with the Devil May Cry remake, that 30 frames per second kind of gives you like a second or two, or at least it feels that way, a time to react a little bit quicker than some of these action games running at 30 frames per second. That's just my opinion. I just think with some games 30 frames feels better. I mean, it looks a lot smoother when it runs at 60 frames per second, but gameplay wise, I think it just feels better. It's a weird thing. It's hard to explain weight to a control system, but it feels like there's more weight to everything. Like gravity's a little bit higher. I can't explain it. It's something you have to experience on your own, but that's my best explanation for it. But you'd have to get God of War 3, the PlayStation 2 collection, and then the PSP collection. The reason why I say avoid Saga is because I don't know if the codes on the online vouchers for the PSP versions of the second collection are good anymore. If they are, and you don't mind not having a physical copy, more power to you. The reason why I got Saga is when Ascension came out, which is a prequel to all the God of War games. That's the last newest God of War game to be developed. That was the last one that came out after 3 on PlayStation 3, even though it takes place before everything. And GameStop had this amazing deal. If you bought this $60 game, you basically get another $60 game for free. That's 5 God of War games plus Ascension, so you get 6 God of War games for the price of 1 game. I couldn't pass it up. Like, I basically owned every God of War game except one of the PSP games. It's probably the one I can't remember the name of. I can remember Ghost of Sparta because that's the one I probably owned, but I can't remember what the other one. It was called Chains of Olympus. That's what it was. Anyway, I think it was. Don't quote me. But that's every single God of War game on the Saga collection. But If you happen to go to GameStop, you have to get the game new, and before they sell you the game, ask to look at the vouchers, because if you don't, you could go home and not get the PSP version. So it's probably a bit more expensive, but I would get the actual physical disc. You know what? Like, I might actually end up buying the physical disc of the PSP version, because once that server goes down, it's not on your hard drive. Pretty much screwed. And they're all great games. And if you happen to have a 3D TV, you actually can play the PSP games in 3D if that's important to you. I think it's a little cool option. But anyway, this is God of War. This is basically a game about the angriest. Sorry, my cough is still here. It's so hard for me to record after I got bronchitis. I'm always trying not to choke when I talk. But yeah, this is basically a game series. This is the first game in a continuing series. I'm sure there's some PlayStation 4 version they're working on, about like the angriest game character I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, if I told you why he's angry, it would spoil the story to this first game, because this game basically kind of explains it, and with each chapter of the game it kind of goes more into Kratos. That's the name of the main character, if you haven't guessed already. It goes more into his story, his background, and his revenge. It's pretty ridiculous. This game is basically if like those old stop motion movies. I guess the most recent stop motion movie. We're not counting the remake. Remakes don't count when stop motion's involved. So it just, even though stop motion looks a little bit more archaic compared to CGI, like if you have stop motion in your movie versus like CGI, I'm always gonna go for the stop motion. But it was like Clash of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts. It's like if those movies like had a baby with like a heavy metal magazine cover, or like any like hard rock album cover from like the 80s, I guess even until now. Like, that's what this game would be. It's just super violent, over the top, hardcore. It takes Greek mythology and just adds this really hyper violent twist to it, to the point where the game itself is taking itself really seriously, except for the third one, for this sex scene that was kind of ridiculous. I hope that didn't spoil anything for you, but it wasn't integral to the story, trust me. That one was kind of realistic, where they broke the fourth wall. But most of these games take themselves like way too seriously for like the content and stuff that they're showing. Like Kratos, not so much in the first game, but in later games, he like disembowels everything and tears it up and rips their heads off, and it's just ridiculous. There's like poor innocent people, and you're supposed to be this hero seeking revenge, and you're just as bad as like the gods and stuff you're trying to seek revenge for, because there's innocent people always running away, and if they happen to be in your path, because Kratos is one of those people that like, there's an innocent person and the enemy behind them. Like, for instance, if you ever seen one of the movies where like the bad guy takes a hostage and he's like, if you move, I'm gonna shoot them or whatever. Well, Kratos would be one of those people that would take his I forgot what they're called. We'll just call them the Blades of Fury, just because it sounds cool. And if that's the name, I win. But anyway, he would just take his little blades with the chains on them and basically shove his knife through the hostage to get to the bad guy, because that's the kind of awesome character he is. Now, I'm a little rusty at this game because I haven't played it in a while. I thought I did, but throughout this game you'll see I'll be getting trophies. I played a lot of the PlayStation 2 version. I tried this out when I first got it and didn't go back to it, but immediately after playing it, I was thinking to myself, I really need to go back and play these games. They're awesome. I still feel like the second one is probably the best. Now, it's not the best looking one. That would obviously go to God of War 3 or God of War Ascension. I almost think it's a tie between those games, but that's my opinion. I have not gotten the PlayStation 4 version of God of War 3. I kind of find it unnecessary. They didn't really do much for it. Like, not much is upgraded. It's like a bare bones and resolution boost with a better frame rate, and that's it. Like, even The Last of Us and the Nathan Drake's collection, they really went out and redid some of the textures and the controls and character models and stuff like that. You're not going to get that with God of War 3. This game was like one of the first games I think that really captured like what it's like to make a proper 3D action platformer game. There was a lot of attempts like with the Devil May Cry games and Castlevania, but I don't think they got it right ever. And one of my biggest pet peeves, beside of course the camera, this has a fixed camera, but it's a nice fixed camera. Devil May Cry had a fixed camera too, but in my opinion it was pretty awful. But one of my pet peeves for 3D platforming games is just that with your blocking, most games in the past like made you have to finish this animation before it would go to the next thing, and it was just ridiculous, because if you were in an actual battle, and these games are far from realistic, so you think that they would be able to react even better. It's like if you were in a battle, you'd be able to change what you were doing like mid-swing. That's not the case for most early action platformers. You have to finish the animation, which leaves you open to get hit, and there was just a lot of cheap shots. In this game, no matter what you're doing, the minute you hit block, he quits what he's doing and he blocks. That was one of the most integral features that stuck out to me the first time I played this, beside everything else. This is a gorgeous looking PlayStation 2 game, and honestly, at 720p at 60 frames per second, beside the shitty compressed cutscenes that they can't really do anything about because they don't have the source material. It's a shame they couldn't do them in real time, because I'm sure that there's two different kinds of cutscenes. There's actually really nice CGI rendered ones, which would be fine if they left those unaltered, but some of the scenes in this game like have like CGI scenes of gameplay, I guess, to avoid a loading time, and they just look horrible, especially when the camera goes up close to some of the character models. I wish they kind of redid that, but because it like changes the look of the game. All of a sudden the game gets really dark, like even the color palette's different, and it changes and it's grainy. And I think the movies aren't at 60 frames per second, so the frame rate looks different. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, I got all these 5 games for free, but when these games first came out, I think they were $40 $50. I don't think they were ever a full price game, but I mean, gameplay wise, it's worth it. It's like a nitpicky thing, but still, I'm gonna point it out just because it's something that sticks in my mind when I see it. This game has a lot of frustrating moments, like this one where if you don't get the block to that area in time, they take the arrows and destroy the block, and then you gotta start all over again. And it's kind of annoying. There's a lot of little annoying things. Another pet peeve that they fixed in later games is button mashing. I've never been good at like quick button mashing. Like in arcade, they have micro switches, and with like fighting games and stuff, which is why I like the fighting pads made for fighting games on the consoles, because it's easier, especially with games like Street Fighter, where you got to do all different kinds of crazy combos and tap buttons really fast and stuff like that. But to actually do it with my individual fingers, I've just never been good. It's actually physically painful, and I just can't move my fingers that fast. But if I can take my my whole palm of my hand and like tap the buttons. I can do it pretty fast, like on an arcade stick or whatever. But this game expects you to do it with like your thumbs on the controller, and the controller, especially the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 controllers, they're analog, so there's actually some resistance to them, whereas like the PlayStation 4 controller is digital. They're not pressure sensitive. It's a little bit easier on the PlayStation 4, but like with the analog buttons, it's a little bit harder because sometimes that light press doesn't always register, if that makes sense. And plus, I'm just not good at it. Like on the Sega Genesis, when you played Mortal Kombat, and it was like test your might, and you had to like chop the wood. And, like I could usually get the chopping the wood part or whatever, and I think the second one's concrete block. But when you started getting the ruby and stuff like that, I couldn't do it. I could do it in the arcade, but not on the home port because I just can't move my thumb that fast. But anyway, this has some of the best graphics on the PlayStation 4. It's very cinematic. And I was surprised when they released God of War 2 on the PlayStation 3. I think the PlayStation 3 was either on its way out or about to come out, and it was really surprising when they released God of War 2 on the PlayStation 2. These games are always delayed a bunch of times, but this is one of those instances where the delay probably made the game worthwhile, because after this game, expectations were high. This is one of those games I knew a lot of people to have and play on the harder difficulties after they finished the game. It was like almost like Super Mario, where like people play the game over and over again well after they beat it. I always felt like this is what the 3D Castlevania should have been. And ironically enough, when Castlevania Lord of Shadows came out, it played exactly like this. Now this game, due to its amazing action-oriented gameplay and its like fluid response time, a lot of games that came after this, not so much in the PlayStation 2 generation, because this came out fairly late, and how God of War 2, excuse me, I'm going through puberty again, my voice just cracked, but how God of War 2 came out on PlayStation 2, I'm surprised they didn't quickly try to port it to PlayStation 3, but again, they probably put so much programming into it, and when the PlayStation 3 came out, programming for it was kind of a clusterfuck. Like, it's not even funny, so I'm sure it was just easier to bring it on PlayStation 2. Yeah, like when the PlayStation 3 came out, unless it was an exclusive title and you had a 360, you would definitely always want the 360 version, because the 360 versions were always better ports, because they would just take whatever they had on 360 and then try to force it on a PlayStation 3. And the PlayStation 3 was technically a more powerful system than the Xbox 360, but the Xbox 360 was way easier to program for. Later on, when you had like ports, every once in a while you'd get a crappy, lazy port. But later on, when people figured out how to program for the PlayStation 3 more, and like I guess it would be Epic Games, Epic Software, the creators of the Unreal Engine 3, started helping out the port their games, because during the 7th gen, most games ran on the Unreal Engine 3, so once they started to help out, games started to come out better. And then each system would kind of show its pros and cons, but like the PlayStation 3 exclusive games look like a whole different generation, in my opinion, at least, compared to like the 360 exclusives, because a lot of the 360 exclusives were like Gears of War were basically nicer renditions of the Unreal Engine 3, like Gears of War, and I'm trying to think of 360 exclusives. I can't remember what engine Alan Wake ran on, but that one looked really good. I think that was an Unreal Engine game as well, but that one looked really good. They looked really sharp and stuff, but the PlayStation 3 exclusives usually had some in-house engine, and I'm not saying it looked like 200 times better than an Xbox 360 like exclusive, but it didn't look like it belonged on the PlayStation 3. Like the second and third Uncharted game, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, like those games look phenomenal. They look better than anything I've seen on the Xbox 360. I think one of the last Xbox 360 games I feel like that held its own for graphic wise anyway against a PlayStation 3 game was probably Halo 4, and I know a lot of you will probably bash me over the head like with that, but or just bash me with comments or whatever. I'm tired. Like, the date on this video says yesterday's date, which when I recorded it, because I expected to do the commentary on the same day, but I was really tired and not up to it. So now I'm recording the commentary in the morning just to get the video out there so I can work on other videos, because I have a somewhat busy day today. So I apologize that I'm a little bit groggy recording this because I just got up, but I really wanted to put a video. I wanted to put a video out at New Year's, but I don't know if you guys watched my Final Fantasy VIII video, but I was starting to get a really bad ear infection. By the time I was done recording the Final Fantasy VIII video, that video was really hard to record because I was in a lot of pain, and that's all I could think about when I was recording. So you'll notice there's a lot of spaces. I still have slight pain and I can't hear out of my right ear really well, but like after I went to go lay down and after I woke up, the pain was even worse. I had to go right to the doctor's the night I recorded that, and then by the next day I was in so much pain it wasn't even funny. My ear canal, it still hasn't even opened up all the way, but it like completely closed, where like it affected my hearing, where like I was basically deaf in my right ear, and the pain was so bad. Like, it sounds horrible, but I wish almost like my eardrum would like burst. There's just so much going on in life right now. I think I should be more honest to you guys about stuff going on. I mean, I know like my content's not incredibly original, but maybe my life would be interesting, or views or whatever, if I talk more about stuff going on instead of trying to pretend to be a personality. I don't know. Some people don't want to hear that shit. Other people are interested. We'll just play it by ear. It's funny that I say that because the whole ear infection thing. But yeah, I'm trying to make my videos better, by the way. I don't know if you'll notice, but some of the videos I put this shitty little border on. I'm trying to make my videos better, but I'm putting this shitty little border around it. But anyway, yeah, it's actually supposed to be a TV screen, but depending on the aspect ratio, sometimes you can see it more clearly than others. I need to get the measurements right. Right now, I refuse to like download pirated software, so I actually have a legit copy of Movie Studio 13, which I know it's kind of amateur. I had Pro before, but it was an older version and not very compatible with this computer, so it doesn't have all the fancy features. So doing simple stuff like adding borders and stuff like that, unless you have like the exact measurements of the video when you make like the little border, like this actually is a legit version of Photoshop I'm using, by the way. Again, that's not the Pro version too, it's Elements, but I can get by. I have a Pro version of Photoshop too, but it's easier just to use Elements. It's more compatible, and I've gotten to the point where I know how to work it fairly well. Everything's like gearing itself towards tablets and looks looks a lot nicer and streamlined. But when I feel like I'm old, I graduated high school in 2003. A lot of you older gamers probably like, oh, that's nothing, you're still a kid. But when I used Photoshop in school, when I was taking classes for it, and then when I went to college and learned editing software, of course, when we used editing software, you use Final Cut Pro on the Apple, which is a whole different thing on its own, which is tough for me because I'm a PC user. So when I use an Apple, I'm like trying to right click and there's just one fat button on the mouse and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I'm just like, oh, can I take this home and edit it on my own? But now all this software, even the pro versions, are so streamlined, and I know people use GIMP and other, like, for their Photoshop that's open source and free, but I just know how to use Photoshop better, and I can kind of tell the evolution. But everything's streamlined almost for like touchscreen computers. Like I know Movie Studio 13 had Windows 8 in mind with its touchscreen interface and shit like that, but I'd rather see like 50 billion options, because that's what I learned when I was going to school, is like a clusterfuck of like a million different options on the toolbars of video editing and Photoshop. So having to relearn all this shit is kind of a pain in the ass, and sometimes I have time to learn the stuff. Sometimes I don't bother and I just quickly do it. But that's why sometimes you'll see slow improvements, or sometimes the audio isn't right on this editing software. And that's just because I had to learn how to redo everything, you know? Every time a new version of this stuff comes out, like this is a new PC that I got earlier this year, so I got all the newer software for it, not the pro version, mind you. I can't pull it off financially, but this works, but I have to relearn how to use all this stuff now that I upgraded it. But I mean, in a way, even though I had to relearn all this stuff, just having the faster hardware and stuff is so much better. It would take almost a day to like render some of my older videos. So like sometimes people make suggestions, oh, the color's off, the sound's not off, and I just wanted to be angry sometimes and just be like, fuck off, because it like took a whole day to do that. And I realized that there was a mistake, but it's like, do I gotta take another day to like make it for a video that once it's posted, if I posted it again with slight little tweaks, nobody's gonna watch it again? So I figured to just move on, and that's kind of the attitude I take now. If I fuck up on a video, I just move on and try to make the next video better. I'm kind of disappointed with the I really like the capture software and the capture device I have. Like I have like a little HD PVR rocket. I have a one that can hook up to my laptop, but it's a pain in the ass. I probably talked about this before. As a matter of fact, I know I have, but it's amazing to record for like the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 4 because of the HDMI devices, and they don't put a lock on it. But the PlayStation 3 is a bitch. I just can't get it in full screen because you have to put on this adapter that takes the component signal and then changes it into an HDMI signal, and I have no idea what like the pixel like ratio is of it is, so I can't really get it perfect when I'm trying to make a border for the screen, unfortunately. So that kind of blows with the PlayStation 3 games, but I mean, it's the best I can do. It gets cropped a little bit. I could leave the black borders on, but they're annoying to me. Maybe you guys think the black borders look better. Maybe you should let me know. Of course, I'll end up doing what I feel that's best, but I still like to hear from you guys either way. But yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and I called the company and they're like, did you upgrade the firmware? Yes, because I guess they're used to talking to people that don't know anything about computers. But if you didn't know anything about computers, why are you messing with editing software and capture devices? But you know, they talk to all different kinds of people, so I don't know. but I don't think a lot of those people know. Because sometimes you'll say, oh, I have this problem, and you can hear them turning pages in like a fucking catalog trying to look up what your problems are, and they're like, sir, there's nothing here that says anything about your problem. And I'm like, alright, thanks for your time. But yeah, no, it's only with using the adapter. If I can record straight off the HDMI, I have no problem with that. Unfortunately, what sucks is a majority of the games I have are on PlayStation 3, PlayStation 1, and PlayStation 2. So that kind of stinks. I was really hoping that even if it wasn't the best, the PlayStation 4 would have some sort of PlayStation 2 emulation instead of making you rebuy the games. Hopefully, the pressure from Microsoft of adding backwards compatibility to some of their games will make PlayStation suck it up, or Sony, but I guess it's the PlayStation division, Sony, to suck it up and actually let us have some sort of emulation instead of buying the games all the time. I don't give a shit about earning trophies on PlayStation 2 games, so they don't need to specially program anything for it. Just make it so it can run, it's programmed to run anything, and just some games won't be compatible, and if they're not compatible, I'll just play it on the PlayStation 2. But it's a powerful enough machine to fucking emulate a PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 game, and that would be so great in order to record maybe slightly higher resolution games if they worked right. I love how bloody this was. I know it's pretty morbid. The third game, and there's my voice cracking again, the third and God of War Ascension are like super gory with like entrails and stuff, but for the time this looked really good, and it's such a great game. And if you have any means to play it, like, I definitely would check this out. This is like one of the defining games of the PlayStation 2 generation. I know for PlayStation 1 people say Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear, I guess the Spyro, the Crash Bandicoot games and stuff like that, Resident Evil 2, even though those were on other systems, they were kind of the defining games on PlayStation 1. I think Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, God of War, I'm trying to think of other games. I guess like the Onimusha were like the new Resident Evils, because until later Resident Evil 4 wasn't even ported on the PlayStation 2, because get this, that Capcom made an exclusive deal with Nintendo, you know, like that company that was notoriously against violence for like a long time. Yeah, that's the one that let the version of Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat, go on their system with, instead of blood, they had like that weird gray sweat that would come out. Yeah, that company. But eventually they got really cool games and got a ton of like RPGs, some of the best, like Persona, the continuation of the Grandia series and whatever. PlayStation 2, all the PlayStation systems are special to me. Beside like the original like Nintendo and Sega Genesis and later on the Super Nintendo, like the PlayStation systems have always been my favorite and the most comforting to me, and probably one of the reasons why consoles just feel great to me still. They're just comforting. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next video. Thanks for all the support. Take care. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.